And we're recording. So today's guest is Chris Matlock of SYF Defensive Solutions. Chris, thanks so much for coming on today, man.
Brother, I appreciate you having me. It's a true honor, my friend.
Yeah, the honor is truly mine. I just I so I went onto your website and I read your bio just a little bit. When I first met you, Chris, I met you through the active self protection instructor certification, and
Correct.
it's one of those rare instances where you walk into a room and you enjoy the company of literally everybody in that room.
Yeah,
There's
for
not a
sure.
whole lot of times when that's ever happened.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, it's been awesome.
yeah, so I got interested, and Chris is on YouTube. Chris is doing a lot of really good content on there. He's been training with some of the best in the industry, like Adam Winch, and there's a couple other heady hitters that I can't really remember right now because
Mm.
there's a lot of lead in my system. And so I got interested in SYF firearms. I'm sorry, SYF Defensive
Defensive
Solutions,
solutions. Yes, sir.
and I looked on the bio, and I was like, okay. I remember that you are a Navy veteran, but I didn't know that you were Navy military police.
That's
Um,
correct.
yeah, and so and that was a ton of training that came along with that. And so,
It was.
man, cool stuff. Very, very cool stuff. So, the main thing I want to talk to you. The main thing I want to hear about from you is, just the work you're doing in uh, you know, the uh, the church security space because I see it on Facebook all the time. You and your
Mhm.
team are doing some outstanding work, man. So can you
Yeah,
tell me
it's
like where you
yeah,
are
it's
and what
been
you're doing?
awesome. Yeah, and I mean, to give you a little backstory, we all kind of followed a pretty similar path. Um, I was in the Navy. I actually joined. I was what they call an RP or religious program specialist, which is basically an assistant to the chaplain, but you are also that chaplain's bodyguard in a combat situation because they're non-combatant position. But due to some, various different reasons, mainly my spiritual beliefs, I ended up stepping out of that and into becoming master at arms, which is the Navy police. And so once I got out of the military, I just kind of followed the natural course. Became an NRA instructor, state instructor, teaching our local. I'm here in Texas and teaching Texas LTC, some self defense, mainly based around firearms, and so that really kind of led to a lot of different things. Texas changed their law, so a lot of that stuff went away. But anyhow, I because of my background, I was approached by my local church and asked to really help and doing this, and it was something that I was already pretty passionate about. Those of us that teach self defense typically, it's a high priority anywhere that we're spending time, especially if we're spending time with our family. And so we began to work on that, and although I had quite a bit of firearms training, quite a bit of self defense training, not a ton of it was directly related with churches. And so that was my mission. I set out, would have been about 2017, 18, um, and really looking to get training specifically when it comes to church safety. And so literally scoured the nation looking for various trainings, did tons and tons of it. Some of it very good, some of it, as you know, Miko, so there's some out there that are just not great. Um, and so um, now to give you a little bit of backstory of me, I actually went to college to work in ministry. So I was involved with campus ministry, went to the graduate school campus ministries out in California, and worked for a time in vocational ministry. And so as I began to do this, I was really looking for an opportunity to kind of intermix both security as well as ministry. Unfortunately, most of the training that I was going to and that I was getting was you can't do that. If you're going to be security, you need to step out of trying to do anything else and just focus on security. If you're going to do ministry, then you can't do security at the same time. And I just didn't really feel like that was correct. I knew that when you came with that kind of approach, that's where you typically hit big roadblocks and issues when it comes to church staff and pastors and that sort of thing. Because essentially everything that you're asking them to do to try to make the facility and the church more secure is going against their beliefs and their desire to be warm and welcoming and inviting. How many times have you gone by your local Baptist church and it's like all are welcome and, come as you are type of thing. And yet when you're looking at security, I'm like, yeah, some of these folks that come as they are, I don't want them here. And so that was really my pursuit. And so I actually continued to try to train and find that. And that's where I actually came across John Correa for the first time on YouTube. He made mention in a video in regards to how that this really could work and that you could be a part of the ministry as you were doing security. And so I was not probably a month before that conference, would have been, I believe, 2019. And so I got a ticket, on a plane, flew out there to the Active Self-Protection Conference, took his training, got an opportunity to visit a little bit with John, Neil Widener, Stephanie, obviously some phenomenal folks. And it was just refreshing to have somebody that was like-minded in the sense that we could do this. And so we continued to develop that and really turned it from, we have church security to having a safety ministry. And so it's really been exciting to be a part of that. Obviously that led me to the where I met you, the active, self-protection instructor program. I was actually, believe it or not, I don't know if I've told you or not, I was actually slated to be in cohort 5. And so, but unfortunately, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I had to bow out of that one. And they were very, very generous in all of that. And so thankfully, my wife went through chemo and radiation, had surgery, was doing phenomenally well. And that allowed me to, come back and be a part of cohort 6. And it was great because that's where I met you.
Yeah. I think we were cohort 5. So
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was supposed to be a part of 4.
Yeah.
Instead, I ended up in 5. Sorry, I just was having conversations in regards to that. Cohort 6 just had their in person. So,
yeah. I saw the some of the posts about that, and man, it brought back a lot of great memories.
Yeah. So thanks for the correction though, because people be like, "What are you talking about? You're not in
It's like I
cohort
didn't
6."
see
Like what? So, but no, it was a great program. Absolutely life changing. In fact, to the point that as I went through that cohort and we began to do, it's pretty intense. I think you can agree as far as the reading, everything that is there. If you're really going to dive into it, and it's more than a program that just says, oh, well, you're going to get out what you put in. That's true. But if you don't put in the effort, you're not going to finish. It is there. There's a lot to it. But it was phenomenal, and it led me to set back and really look at what I was doing, because most of the teaching that I was doing, both with straightforward firearms instruction as well as the church safety stuff, was pretty curriculum based versus student based. And so it was just about, hey, I've got information, I want to share it with you, and you need to sit back and listen. Versus really understanding how adults learn and understanding. And so I basically took everything that I had been doing and scrapped it. I developed an entire new program of how we train, working with our guys. Typically, most of our trainings and my team, we actually train once a month. And most of that looks more like, we're moving throughout the church. We're doing various things now, one training may be on things related to firearms, and the next month it may be related to ministry work. Because that's our heart and that's our passion. Listen, I don't want to just be the security guy. I don't need security at the church like I have bouncers at a bar. And so I want to make sure that everybody that comes in here, because this is part of my spiritual family, I am here to help protect them. At the same time, my desire is to build the kingdom, to make disciples, and so to be a part of the ministry of the church and what they're doing, and not counter to that.
Man, it's an excellent mission.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about, your church, where you're located, how big your team is?
Yeah, sure. As far as our local church, of course, we're out here in Midland, Texas. We actually have multiple campuses. So we have our main campus that was the main church for many years. And they felt led to reach to some other areas in our, I'm out in the Permian Basin, so in the oil field, if you will. Pretty much everything out here is based around the oil field. So we have 2 additional campuses as far as physical campuses, and then we actually have 2 separate Espanol only services. So for Spanish speaking folks. And so, we somewhere between 2,200 on average on a Sunday as far as folks moving through our church. So it's a large congregation. And so we're currently sitting somewhere, if you were to combine our entire safety team, all campuses, somewhere in the 65 to 70 range. It's a large team. And so, but to give you a kind of a perspective, if you were my main campus on Sunday morning, I probably have somewhere around 20 guys or so that are working, throughout those times. And that's pretty average. We normally average somewhere 25 to 30 guys that will typically be at our monthly trainings. And as anything, you have guys when you're dealing with volunteers. You have various levels of, commitment, and guys that are, some guys, man, I tell you what, if I didn't put them on the schedule for any particular Sunday, they're calling me, asking me if I'm upset with them. Like, what happened? Why did I make you mad? Why did you not put me on the schedule? And I'm like, well, dude, I'm just trying to give you a break, brother. And then I have other guys that are like, I've got one guy on my team. He's got 6 kids. He's busy. And yet, he serves, he's willing to do so, but obviously he's not able to do the same level of commitment. And so, just kind of the way the schedule works and the way that it goes. And so we've worked very hard. Obviously, that's when I tell most folks that we have a team of that size, they're like, holy cow, how did you do that? And for one, is just the grace of God. But I think the real point behind it is when we really went from, we're just this security group at the church, this security team, to something that was part of the ministry of the church. And not just part of the church, but a ministry within itself. So you can imagine when you have, 50, 60 folks that are a part of something, that there begins to, relationships develop and things begin to grow. And I can tell you, when my wife was diagnosed with cancer, I wouldn't have survived without my faith and these men that I walk with. I wouldn't have. My wife was actually did a lot better than I did. I struggled. And so these were people that I really, really helped support me and help me walk through that. And so that became very inviting for folks. So it went from, for a long time, I had, 8 or 10 guys that were a part of this. And sometimes I could not get them to show up, and it was a struggle. And as we began to really develop this, it really grew to something that now, we have continual people that want to join. And we're pretty stringent as far as who those folks are. We never advertise. You'll never see a flyer or a video on the screen on Sunday morning that talks about being a part of the security team or the safety team. We do try to reach out some to our medical professionals within the congregation because I like to have those type of people. Obviously, I have some training, especially when it comes to, trauma and that sort of thing. But man, feel much better about having, an RN, ER nurse, that's on call. And so any kind of a medical emergency that we may have on a Sunday morning, that person can just take control. Cause this is what they do. Let's let the experts do what the experts do. And so we try to push that. And I have a large amount of people that do that. They're not on the safety team in the sense of security. And they're simply on the medical side of it as well. And so that has begun to reach out to other ministries within the church. So we have people that serve, say, as a church usher or a greeter. We have several individuals that work in our children's ministry that are a part of our safety team. And so, it really kind of allows us to work well with those other ministries, and really begin to develop those teams and put people where they need to be.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of training have you guys been able to develop? I know you say you do stuff like monthly and on a regular basis, like quarterly maybe. Like, what instructors have you reached out to? I mean, we already talked about John Correa.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we were privileged actually. Last year, I actually had quite a few of my guys that were able to join me at the conference. So they got to go to the full conference, get all, 3 days of some phenomenal training. Adam Witch, Brian Hill, John Correa, Neil. Just the list goes on and on of level of people that you not only get to, sit in class and be on the range with, but rub shoulders with these individuals and hear people like Adam Winch's heart, and just who he is as a person. Phenomenal man, by the way. And get to know outside of just YouTube, John and Neil and these folks. It's like, okay, well, I see this guy every day because I watch his videos, but who is this guy? And they're just and this as well as I do, they're just as real as can be. And so, that was a great opportunity for some of my guys. Now, obviously there's quite a bit of cost involved and, taking off of work and those sort of things. And so, we certainly can't focus on trying to do that and trying to take a bunch of people to a conference or, take them and, hey guys, I want all of you to come. I'm going to go to Brian Hill next month and y'all need to come with me. I'd love that. But you and I both know that's not going to happen. The vast majority of people are not going to pay, $500-$600 to go take a class, and, travel to who knows where to do it. And so that was really my focus when I started was, listen, I know these guys are not going to be able to get the training unless I'm able to give it to them. Let me go get the training and become knowledgeable enough that I can instruct them. And that was really a focus on, when we developed our team, because, most folks would think, oh, well, you're out in West Texas. And so no big deal. And, everybody's going to be on board because, of course, in Texas, everybody's got guns, right? And it's, for one, that's not even close to the case. And you would be surprised, honestly, I say somewhat of a struggle that we had of having these people understand, especially our pastoral staff, of, the importance of this and that this is not just a bunch of hillbillies running around with guns. And so the biggest point of that being training. And so we said, listen, we're going to not only we require you, even though now in Texas, you do not have to have any type of license to carry a firearm. So we call it permitless carry because it's not quote unquote constitutional, but, basically with a few parameters, you can carry a gun without going to any class or doing anything. If you're going to carry, though, as part of my team, you're going to have a license to carry from the state. Because at least that tells me that you have at least spent some time studying what the law says when it comes to carrying a firearm, and the biggest point being the use of deadly force. On top of that, we decided that we were going to use. So in Texas, the law enforcement here is as far as education and training is controlled by what they call TCO. So they set the standards, and so basically any certification that a Texas peace officer gets is through them, including their pistol qualification. So TCO, which is very similar to, say, the FBI qual, those sort of things. But because we're in Texas, we set the TCO because that could be readily understood, that every single one of my team members, before they carry a firearm as part of our team, has to pass their qualification. So they pass the exact same qualification that any peace officer would have to pass to carry a firearm. And so that gives us a lot of, at least you have to have a basic ability to shoot a firearm and shoot it from a holster. And so that's, on the firearm start of it, that's kind of where we set the parameters. We do continual range trainings. I try to do about one a quarter that's actually at the range. We do quite a bit more than that. That's just really kind of on the cuff, if you will. We have our normal Sunday training that we do that after services on Sunday. And then a lot of times it'll be like, hey, I'm going to the range, so anybody that's free, come on out. If you got some things you want to work on. And I'll have 4, 5, 6 guys that'll show up. We also started so we have a local IDPA club here in Midland that does a match once a month. And so, it was a really good drive. I try to, push my guys, hey, come out and compete. It's fun. And it's great practice. And so it's not just, standing on a line, shooting B8s, la-di-da type of thing. It's, hey, we're going to actually do some moving and shooting and work on some real life scenarios. And so we try to incorporate a lot of different things for them to get that side of the training. And then on top of that, not only are we looking to, obviously we want to make sure that they're proficient with a firearm. And understanding that the use of that firearm is not very practical in the sense of, it's not very practical is not the word, but not very likely. A scenario that would happen at church that would require you to use the use of deadly force is a very, very low percentage. But it is certainly possible, and it takes the most amount of skill to deal with. If I ever have a situation that requires me to use deadly force, the level of skill I need to have to deal with that is high. And so, that's, why we have such a focus on that part of it. But then again, like I said, we do a lot of training that deals that I have a, pastor that works at our church that's, his gifting is in evangelism and sharing the gospel. And we will have him come in and talk to our guys. Because the one thing you have to understand is that 9 times out of 10, and I'm using a John Correa term, and a unique visitor. And that's typically how we would phrase somebody that comes in that's, listen, for whatever reason, this person stands out, what they're wearing, how they're acting, etc. That is a unique visitor that we need to have a conversation with. Well, 95% of the time, that is an individual that's simply going to give me an opportunity to either share the gospel or minister to them in some way. Because typically those people are, hey, I just had a conversation a few weeks ago with a guy that showed up. He obviously stood out based on the way he was acting. And through our conversation, he ended up, his wife had left with the kids. He was struggling. He was having issues. And he, never really had not darkened the door of a church in 20 years. But he needed something. And so that allowed the opportunity to minister and get him connected with people to help him in the areas he needed to be. And so that's really, our goal and focus. And so we have to also train on those things. How do we have these conversations? How do I deal with the folks that are struggling in various areas? How do I deal with mental illness and those sort of issues? Because that's typically what it is. And even when you look at the, mass casualty events, 99% of the time, that's the type of thing you're dealing with. So if I can learn how to handle that in a, de-escalation capacity, then, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do as far as keeping this place safe, without having to do, other things when it comes to the use of force. So we focus quite a bit on those sort of things, as well as the medical training, understanding. I need every one of my guys to have and know how to use a tourniquet, and that sort of thing. And so, and we typically try to get the experts in the field. I don't want to train that. I want the guy that does this on a daily basis. And so we'll get those folks that are, like I said, the RN that works every day in the emergency room, those sort of things to come in and teach our folks.
So, if I was going to be, or if I was hoping to join a security team,
Mhm.
um, or if I have a security team and, there's people on that security team, if I'm a member of a security team, we already talked about, some kind of baseline level of medical skills. We're looking at a baseline level of like social skills, some verbal
Mhm.
judo. What other skills would security team members need to bring to the table in order for them to be effective?
Well, and it's funny that you asked that, because part of what I did when I decided to kind of revamp and look at how I taught this, I essentially come up with what I call the 10 commandments of church safety. And not obviously we don't have the time to sit there and go through all of those things. But the main principle is understanding and both on my Christian faith, as well as my ability to handle these type of stressful situations. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we have a pretty strenuous interview process that we go through when it comes to being a part, of our safety team. And I implore any church that looks to do that. And it's hard because when you're asking for volunteers, it's difficult to be picky, and to say, well, this guy, I know he's pretty good with a gun. He's got a military background. So I'd kind of like to have him on my safety team. But he's cheating on his wife. Okay, well, that's a problem. Um, and so I need these people both to have their ability, but they also need to have, um, their morality set in place. They need to have their Christian principles set in place. What do you believe, and where are you at when it comes to your faith? And so these are all things that are important. And so those are the type of things that we deal with, is having those discussions. And I've had many of them where it's like, listen, I've got a guy and he wants to be a part of our safety team. But say he's a brand new believer, he just decided to make a decision for Christ, and he's growing in his faith. And I certainly don't want to knock that down. And so I want to stay contact. And I'm like, listen, there's some places that you certainly can serve in the church. But at this point, because of the leadership role that you have to play as part of a safety team, we need to grow. And so let me help you do that. Let's get you connected in the right places. And I've had multiple people that have done that. One individual that comes to mind that he would literally, this guy was, just living his life, and he decided to make a change and was having a struggle in his family. And he came in and, got on fire for God and wanted to be a part, and that's great. And so we connected him with our usher team to begin with, and said, hey, here's kind of some steps that you need to do and to walk just like you would to get the skill with a firearm. There's certain things that you need to do to get the skill in your spiritual walk. And he did those things. And about 6 months down the road, he became part of our safety team, still serves today. Great, tremendous guy, led a lot of people to the Lord. And so, it's exciting to see those things. But at times it's like, hey, okay, this guy's got the skill, but does he also have the mental fortitude to do what needs to be done? Some people don't. It's just like some people have no business being a cop. But you have to look at all those aspects. And as you asked, hey, if I'm analyzing myself and I want to be a part of that, then I need to understand where I stand as far as my abilities. Where is my thought process, and where is my spiritual walk?
That makes a lot of sense. Those are really good insights. Um, so, of course, obviously, it has more to do than just shooting. You know, there's a lot of
For
going on
sure.
upstairs. But just how good do I have to be at shooting in order for me to be on my church security team? Is there a standard or?
Well, and that's things and principles that we talk about all the time, because obviously, there's a difference even with a, say a private citizen who's carrying a firearm for self defense, um, and my ability in a church setting to be able to use that firearm effectively. Because obviously, anytime if you're going to have to use your firearm, it's going to be your worst day. Period. End of conversation. What we want to do is try to minimize how bad that is. And what I mean by that is obviously, if I have to use my firearm, say as Jack Wilson did at White Settlement Church, that was a rough event. And unfortunately, two other people lost their lives, but he stopped uh, who knows countless amount of lives being lost. And so that was, not quite as bad as it could have been. Obviously, if somebody was to do that in that same scenario, except for the first shot accidentally hit grandma that's sitting in the pew next to the bad guy, that just went from a really bad day to a horrible day. And so it's something that I implore my guys in understanding. And even when they come and do their quals, we have conversations about that. Hey, listen, every one of these shots that is off target was potentially grandma, somebody's kid, etc. Because you're typically in a crowded setting, and so it's not just about. Obviously, I want to be proficient with my firearm, but even more than that, I need to understand what my ability is and know what my limitations are. And so, if I can't hit a B8 standing at 25, 35 yards, and yet I'm standing in a sanctuary, which my particular sanctuary is 37 yards from the back door as you walk in to the stage. So if I'm standing in the back of that sanctuary and I am taking a shot towards the front, but I can't, I hit a B8 one out of 5 times at a range when I have no stress. I don't need to be taking that shot, period. That is beyond my ability. And so I either need to work on my skill and my ability to make that shot. And so I know that I have a confidence that at least in a, normal situation, I can make that shot. Um, or I need to either pursue this individual, I need to do something else. I don't need to simply because this guy is doing something bad and I have a gun, I take a shot. Unless I absolutely 100% know that I can be proficient with what I'm doing, because the consequences are too grave. And so that's why we spend so much time that, not only with your ability with the firearm, but your understanding of what is happening and your ability to respond. Because if you do not spend time contemplating that beforehand, you certainly will not be able to do it in the moment. You're either going to make the wrong decision as far as you're going to pull and use your firearm, and bad things are going to happen, or you're just not going to respond. And 9 times out of 10, that's what we see with most people when they have not trained, when they have not at least spent the time to sit down and say, if this happens, what would I do? If you have not played that over in your mind, then you're going to sit there like a bump on a log. Or you're going to run out the door, or you're going to hit the floor just like everyone else. So, our desire is to, when it comes to individuals on the safety team, as individuals that understand my job is to respond, not to run. And so, how I respond depends on my level of training. Plain and simple. And so you're going to fall back on whatever training that you have gained to that point, and that's all you have to work with. And so if you haven't shot your firearm in 6 months, 8 months, then whatever level you're at, that's where you're at. And so that's why we really implore these guys, try to make the range trainings, dry fire practice. We try to push that, and everybody has lives, and they have, kids going 17 directions, and, it's like, hey, you're doing training on Saturday. Well, that's great. But I've got, 2 basketball games and a football game, and, it's tough. And so we do everything we can. And I try to encourage other churches when it comes to that. You really have to reach out and do all that you can. And so we're trying to schedule some evening train. Hey, come out, time's about to change, and, we'll have a few hours in the evening. So, hey, if you can't make a Saturday, make an evening training. And so give them all the opportunity possible to come out and get this, and said, listen, you're getting a high level of training, and this is not costing you anything. And so, we're trying to do everything we can to help you. And so you have to be prepared.
Man, good stuff. So imagine I'm a pastor and I'm trying to start up a security team, or imagine I'm the leader of my own security team, and I want to bring back some of this really cool knowledge and training to my team. Like, who are some of the people in the industry that I need to go see? I think we talked about John Correa, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, John Correa has a, unique, for one, he's just a phenomenal teacher. It's just his gifting, but he's in a very unique situation because of the amount of time that he spent as a vocational pastor. He really kind of understands the ins and outs of it. He has a passion similar to I, that, he really desires to help churches do this. And so, it was just phenomenal training. And the thing with John is, man, he puts it out there. Honestly, if you want the bulk of his training as far as classroom goes, you can, go on his YouTube channel and get a lot of that. He puts clips of it out all the time. But I would honestly, it's nothing like the in-person. It's just phenomenal. And so fortunately for John, but unfortunately for the rest of us, because of everything that he's involved in and everything he's doing, he's very, very limited on what he teaches and trains anymore. He just doesn't have the time. I get it. And so a lot of that is, hey, you want it, then sign up and go to their conference. It's a great time. I really, especially for safety teams to go, like I said, we did it last year. I had a group of my guys, they all stayed at the conference. So, you get all the experience in hanging out. Others like Adam Winch, who really has a heart for it as well. Now, obviously he does tons of all kinds of training, from pistol training to long range rifle. He's kind of the one-stop shop, and he's just a tremendous instructor. And so he's really been a real tremendous help in the training world. And then there's a lot of organizations out there that really help when it comes to the organization and the skills, and like what's called the Faith-Based Security Network, which is a conglomeration of a whole bunch of church security folks, that do training, that are a part of it, etc. They do a conference as well every year. They'll have speakers like Jack Wilson, Stephen Rutherford, who was the hero of the day at the Sutherland Springs shooting, which was, by the way, also here in Texas. And so, there's a lot of things out there that you can do. Obviously, that's our whole desire and hope. So, we're here. I developed a business that, really is more of a ministry than a business, if you will, because that's our desire, is to help churches to develop these, to get the training that they need. And so we try to do everything we can to work with the cost and that sort of thing, because it's, listen, we've all dealt with it. We all know it. It's always a struggle, and you deal with, no matter what the size of the church is, there's always budgetary issues and things. And this is a very difficult thing to say, oh, we're going to spend any kind of decent amount of funds towards doing this. And so we try to go in there and help them develop this and get the guy. I mean, you've always got to have the guy, right? The guy that's like me, that's the one that's, willing to really put in the time and the effort to get the training. And so that's our goal. And so we kind of do a, if you will, a discipleship type model of, help, just like we do in Christianity of, hey, let me, help disciple you, grow you, teach you, as Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. And so we take that same aspect when it comes to church safety. Is, let us come in there and help you kind of develop the skills. Here's the ways to go. You've got that guy that's willing to go and take the, Adam Winch's classes and go to the conference and get the training, and then let that individual share that information with others that, are not going to typically do that. So we, as we well know in this industry, about 1% of folks actually reach out and get additional training outside of what's required. And so, trying to get a volunteer to say they're going to go to a Brian Hill, I wish they would all do it. It's phenomenal, but it's just not going to happen. And so we try to get those individuals that are willing to do so. And so, and that allows it. And so as you build a team and you get more individuals that are willing to do that, and hopefully your church will play a part in that of, hey, I'm willing to send, a couple guys to this type of training, and then go and learn, and then come back and share with what you've learned. And so, that's the best way. And that's where we've, really been able to have some success and have some confidence in the training and the ability of our team members. So, but it's the way it goes. So I have we've got a large team, but I've got guys all along that spectrum of training. Individuals that want to be a part of what we're doing, but they're really not gun guys. And so they always, they have their parts to play. And I have some that, want to become that. They're not at that level yet. And so they're working and training, and eventually they'll get there. And so, it allows us to plug those people in. It doesn't have to be everybody with, strapping guns on every Sunday morning. There's definitely parts to play for all folks.
Yeah. Parts to play for all of us. So let's see, man, this has been really, really cool. But Chris, I know you got some stuff going on down the pipe. I know you have like some more classes and some more events, some more matches to go to. Can you tell me a little bit about, like what plans you have over the next couple of months?
Yeah. So we got tons going on. So we're setting up and doing some things, and probably the best way to say, obviously we've got, I'm going to start. So my pistol class is called Pistol Logic. And so, and what I've really developed because of the size of our team is basically we're going to start doing some quarterly trainings, which will be essentially that class. The difference being is that I'm going to open it up for folks. And so I'm going to allow people that want to sign up, that maybe you're a part of a safety team or looking to develop one, but, really don't have the ability or maybe the interest of the church to be a part of that. And so if individuals want to come and be a part of our training, then they can do so. I believe our next one is going to be in May. We're still trying to finalize things on that. And then we're really just kind of, I really just, because I have a heart to help other churches, I've really put it out there and got churches that want us to come in. So we're going to do some assessments and different things, especially with some local churches. And then I personally, as well as with our team, like I said, we started using competition as a part of a way to train. Because as I shared before we actually started recording, it's, for me, it's become a real driving force in training. And it is difficult both for myself as well as others when when your sole goal is to train for self-defense in an event that is likely to never happen. You and I are likely to never have to pull our firearms in a self-defense situation. That's just the matter of fact of it. And so it becomes very easy to become complacent in that training because I'm basically training for something that's likely to never happen. And so when I can add in things, and for me, competition was that thing. It is the driving force that makes me train, that makes me want to be better. I obviously want to be better for self-defense. I want to be, if that situation ever arises and I need to use my firearm, I want to be successful at that. But it becomes easy to, it's probably not going to happen, so I'm not going to. And so I began to compete. And of course, I'm the guy that, if I decide to do something, then I'm going to get, basically I'm all in. And so, I really have pursued that pretty hard and tried to compete and begin to get level, and actually reached out to folks like yourself that have a lot more experience in that as I begin to grow and kind of understand this. But I've been shockingly surprised at the obviously the ability that it takes to compete at a high level, but the real comparison that you can make when it comes to self-defense, when it comes to even some of the stress levels and things that go along with that, and the shooting and moving and different things that would be more likely to happen if I ever end up in that type of situation. So obviously there's certain things that, hey, I would never really do this in a real live self-defense type of deal. I would, never do a reload in this capacity. Okay, sure. I get that. And yet who really cares? If I can get my reload to, a second and a half, if I ever needed that in the self-defense, now don't tell John Correa, because, John says you never would need it. But anyways, sorry, I just had to put that. We always go back and forth because I'm, a big fan of carrying an extra mag. But anyways, I mean, that's, those sort of things play a part. And so, that's where I've really pushed on that. I've tried to use that in our training. And so, so we've got a lot of things, coming up. We're hoping to, continue to grow things and help, when it comes to, other churches that are trying to do this, trying to look at it. And my real heart is to help those that, maybe have a church security team of some type, or, because most likely what you see is a group of, you have a church and there's 4 or 5 guys that are typically gun folks that are just kind of concerned about it. And so they just kind of put this thing together and say, we're church security. It's not necessarily really official. They're just guys that would potentially respond if something happens. Okay, lovely. But and so it's like, hey, can we take that and turn it into something that is official, that is legit, that has a SOP and has a training curriculum of what are we doing and how are we doing this, and how can we really work with our church staff to become something that is a part of what's happening at that church and not opposed to it. And so, because that's where most people, they're like, well, we tried to talk to the pastoral staff, but they're just not interested. And, they just don't, get it. They don't understand that we need this. They're like, oh, the Lord will take care of us. And sure, he will. But obviously, we need to be smart about this. And so how do we work with that thing? And we work with them. And so versus opposing them, because honestly, you can have a desire to have a church safety team as a church member all you want. If you can't work with the church staff, it's not going to happen. Just plain and simple. Sorry about your luck. And so I have to understand how to sit down and have a conversation and help the church in understanding what this ministry is about. Because it is absolutely should be a ministry within your church, just like your men's ministry, your women's ministry, your children's ministry. This is a part of what the church is called to do, which is to share the gospel and make disciples. And so if I am not doing that, then it's not designed correctly. And so that's our real heart desire, is to help these folks to try to develop something that looks like that, in capacity and fit in your environment. Obviously, the culture at my church is not going to look like yours in Memphis. And so, and it may be, it's different sizes, it's different people, it's, all of those things are different. And so, you don't have a, cookie cutter type of deal. It is set to fit the parameter of the culture of your church. And so, but it should help to grow that church, not to do the opposite. And you can imagine, if you, stick a couple guys standing at each side of the door before you enter the church, and they're standing there with their earpiece in and they're looking all official. And, new folks walk up to that church and like, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And they're going to turn around and leave. And so we don't want to do that. We want to continue to be warm and welcoming. And at the same time, handle those issues and understand. And so it's what I like to call praying for folks with our eyes open. I will certainly talk to you and I will pray for you, but I'm going to be alert and aware of what's going on and understand. And so most of the time when bad things happen, it's because that individual is in pain and they simply want to share that pain. And so I need to have an understanding of what they're going through and can I help them? But obviously, if you're going to take it to a certain level and you're going to potentially harm those that I love, I have to take action, whatever that may look like. And so that's what we try to do.
Good stuff. Obviously, you're in your element with this. You're incredibly knowledgeable about this. I'm so grateful that you came on, because I learned an absolute crap ton about, church security and how that works. This is excellent, man. Thanks a bunch, Chris.
Yeah, no, brother. It's been, this is a fun conversation. Love talking to folks about it, and understanding the importance of, when it comes to that. And so, those folks out there, they're like, listen, I go to church at such and such church, but I have no idea. I would implore you to ask and talk and have conversations. And if it's a concern of you and, hey, we don't have anything, because it's amazing to me how many churches do not have any type of a safety program, anything set up for that, at least officially. And so, I certainly implore people to really look into it and become a part and listen. As we do, it's like, hey, if I see a need, then fill it. If you've got a desire to do it, you can't just go to a church and say, well, you should do this. No, step up. Give us a call. We can have conversations. We can help you. Again, it's something I'm passionate about. So, folks are like, well, you just can't give it all away for free. Well, I'm sorry. It's just the way I am. And so I do what I can, in helping folks. And even if it doesn't, bring me a dime, that's fine. We're not 99% of us are not in this for the money. As instructors, as teachers, we just have a passion to help people defend themselves. And so if, obviously, there's cost involved, expenses and things, and your time has to be worth something. But, to me, the benefit of helping someone develop something, helping a church develop a team, a lot of times is payment enough for me. And so, we certainly do what we can. And I can't tell you the countless times that I've, had churches call me and I've, gone in and done assessments and done things, and I didn't make a dime. It was just, helping them. But now they have, relatively successful teams. And so that is certainly a payment.
Yeah. Speaking of which, like, how can people get a hold of you if they want to get an assessment, if if they have questions, maybe email or social media?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is obviously to go to our website, which is syfdefensivesolutions.com, and that's all one word. And some people ask me, they're like, where in the world? So that SYF stands for Seek Ye First. So Matthew 6:33 says, Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things shall be added unto you. And so that's our goal. That's kind of our mantra. But that's where you can find us. You can find a ton of information of, how we can help. All of our contact. We have the email, the phone number is all on the website. And so I implore people just, reach out, whether you give me a call or send me an email, kind of let me know, where they're at, as far as this. We have all our information about various packages, whether it's, hey, I can just come in and do assessment and kind of help you in the conversation when it comes to talking with church staff. Or if it's a church staff themselves. And that 9 times out of 10, that's what it ends up being is, a pastor or elder with a church that's looking to try to get something going, but they're just not we're sure where to start. So love to have those conversations. So, certainly reach out, and we'll do all we can to help. And like I said, we've got a lot of information about, package deals and things you can do, or potentially working with, other local churches. So, hey, share expense, those sort of things. So,
Yeah. So let's see. I think you're also on Facebook and Instagram, correct?
yes. So you can certainly reach out. I've got, SYF Defensive Solutions on Facebook. Obviously I'm Chris Matlock. I've got a personal page as well. SYF, we have a YouTube channel. So please folks, come out, support us, watch our videos, subscribe. So,
Yeah.
and because it helps get the word out, this isn't about, people knowing who Chris Matlock is. It honestly isn't. It's more about, hey, wait a minute, there are some resources out here to help us. So, my YouTube channel is relatively new. We don't have a ton of content. In fact, I steal a lot of it's like, oh, Mikos had Chris Bean on. I'm going to put that on my YouTube channel. So just share it because, obviously these people that we want. And so we're working on, getting some more content. And as we're doing more trainings, we're going to start putting some training clips out there to kind of understand, especially my focus is, again, the 10 commandments of safety ministry. And so we're going to start putting those out there and sharing more of that. And then, of course, there's a lot of, my personal background as well on YouTube. As far as our family, my wife and I have a real heart for foster and adoption. And I've had the privilege to, she had 2 children when we got married. And so I got the privilege of adopting both of her kiddos and, being dad to them for the last 15 years. So we've got some pretty special things that we, share in those moments of, getting to go to court and those sort of things. So, come check us out and let us know how we can help.
Absolutely. Will do. All of those links and whatnot, I'm going to put those in the description for the video and for the podcast. So anywhere you're listening or anywhere you're watching this, you can look in the description and you can find contact information and social media links for Chris Matlock and SYF Defensive Solutions. Chris, man, tell you what, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. And you and your wife are going to be in our prayers.
Hey, I appreciate that. We're right on the cusp and looking to adopt some more kiddos. So we certainly appreciate all the prayers and support. So it's a venture for sure. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you, Mikos. Honestly, it is an absolute privilege and an honor to, be able to spend a little bit of time hanging out and discussing this. And I really appreciate your desire to get some more information about it and have these conversations. So thank you again for that.
Thanks a bunch, Chris. And folks, if you're listening or if you're watching, I just want to let you know how much we appreciate the time you're spending here with us. You could have spent that time doing anything, but you're spending it here with us, and I just want to let you know how much we appreciate it. Folks, welcome to Memphis.